and we are a few minutes after the hour, so we will get started. So this is the webinar about efficiency. We're going to be discussing how to set your business up for scale and growth. And in the webinar, we'll be tackling this first at a higher level, and then we will come down to talking about specifics. We got a lot of great questions submitted by people as they were signing up, and we'll tackle those throughout the presentation. So, oh, excuse me, give me 1 second. It seems like my screen moved. Okay, so quickly running through the agenda, we'll go through quick introductions, we'll talk about our efficiency levers, and then we'll tackle the questions. Nice and simple. A couple of housekeeping items. This session is being recorded. People usually ask this, so you will get a link to the recording after in case you have to jump early. The webinar itself is also live, as you're well aware, so don't hesitate to talk to us throughout and make any commentary or send us any questions. And the Q&A is happening at the end, so stick around for that if you have something that you want to discuss that's maybe a little bit more complex than like a simple yes or no or a feature question. With that out of the way, I want to introduce our panelists. First up, we are joined by Brad White, who is the CEO of VARC Solutions. He's a seasoned business leader and a consultant experienced in growing small to mid-market businesses. He spent his career executing strategy for businesses and transforming people and organizations through leadership, coaching, training, and development. He also sits on a number of boards and advising people on the product direction they're taking. And he is a certified QuickBooks Online Pro Advisor, a trusted Intuit partner, and has over 25 years of experience as a QuickBooks expert. Brad, did I miss anything?
No, you got it.
Thanks. Love the vote of confidence. And we're also joined by Mike. So a little bit of a change. Last minute, we did have John Solis initially booked in for the webinar. However, John has been called with something last minute and he could not make it. But we have Mike here and we're going to have just as strong a presentation because Mike is the SMB team lead for Avalara. He joined the business back in 2020, and since then he's worked closely with businesses to implement Avalara's tax compliance solution. So his role is focusing on having business understand how exactly Avalara fits into their technology stack and supporting them through the complexities of sales tax automation. Mike, anything to add there?
No, you nailed it.
Thanks so much. And of course, the webinar itself is hosted by me. My name is Mattis. I am the host and the content lead at Method here. And for anybody who's new to Method, we are a CRM platform that comes with a bi-directional instant sync to QuickBooks, whether that's desktop, online, or any of the versions that you may be running. And our focus is helping you automate all of the steps from your invoice all the way to your cash completion cycle. So that's a little bit about Method. Jumping right into the content and into what we're talking about today, what kind of prompted this area of discussion and the question of how we can achieve better efficiency in businesses is this interesting statistic from research that was done by Deloitte quite a while ago around business efficiency. And we had this stat come out that only 14% of executives actually think that their teams are operating at full potential. And I think that a lot of folks in business tend to feel this way, especially if you have ambitions to grow or ambitions to change the way that your business operates. That pain can get really, really clear as you're working inside of it day in and day out. So we have a poll to kick us off to get a sense of where people are feeling with this question. So let me just launch this poll, and it's really around how closely would you see your team is operating at its full potential. So let me launch this poll. And one is if you're not that confident, you think that you're just getting started, a lot of things are maybe manual and could use a little bit more efficiency. or if you're firing on all cylinders all the way at 5. So we'll take 30 more seconds maybe to get people to answer the poll. See a lot of answers coming in. And we'll just give it 5 more seconds. And we'll end the poll. So I'm sharing the results with everybody now. Hopefully you can see this. We see that we have quite a few people right in the middle, room for improvement. We have somebody who's firing on all cylinders. So hopefully, whoever you are, you can chime in to people in the chat on how they could get to that level. And then, as you see on the 1 and 2, we have a chunk of the audience as well. So excited to dig into that, and excited to talk about some of the problems that people are experiencing. Moving to our webinar. It is titled 3 Efficiency Levers. So we wanted to actually talk a little bit about what is a lever and how we can think about levers, because we're going to break things down based on the questions that you submitted to us. And we're going to organize the discussion around these 3 key areas. So this is a quick sample of the type of questions that we got. A lot of interesting ones, stuff around getting exactly, understanding how exactly to grow sales, stuff around how to utilize different systems correctly, understanding how to be compliant. That's a big one when it comes to stuff that Mike's going to discuss. Understanding whether you have the right people in place. So there's obviously a lot of issues, and we can expand our bucket with these issues a lot. The best way that we want to approach this, however, is to try to abstract away from these issues into these concrete themes, and we're going to organize everything around these themes. So our first theme, without kind of teasing everybody here for too long, that we're going to organize around is the team. So if you think about a lever and the thing that you can control in business, one of the core aspects of what you can change, and what can change dramatically, and it can have a dramatic impact on the way you operate, are the people who actually deliver the processes inside of your business. I know that this is a really big one for both Brad and Mike, but Brad, from your perspective, you've obviously been running an operation for a while. Have you seen this evolve at VARC Solutions, and how has it evolved over time?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's evolved at VARC Solutions. It's evolved in every role I've ever had, and every business and client that we work with. So managing and enabling your team to be the best that they can be is something we all struggle with. It's an opportunity and a challenge for every one of us. So like one of the questions that I think Bridget had was specifically around like hiring and how do you get the right people? And so the way I think of this is really twofold. Is number one, getting the right people on the bus, getting the right people in your business, but also taking care of the ones that are already there. It's very easy to go, okay, let's write a job description. Let's go try to find this person to fill this new role. Or if somebody vacated a role, let me go find a replacement for that role. But it's something you have to be relentless about in terms of your own people already in your organization. And are they in the best place they need to be to help you scale? And probably one of the best ways I could, explain that from my perspective is, you could have the best systems in the world. You could have best product in the world. But if your team is fighting each other all the time, not working together to support each other, not doing good handoffs between, the beginning of an engagement, the end of an engagement, you're going to have problems scaling if you don't have the right people. And so when I think of like, okay, I'm going to go hire somebody, it's no longer just about can they do the job? Do they have the technical skills? Do they have the product knowledge to do it? It's, are they adaptable to change? Because quite frankly, I mean, I've not really had a single day in my life where there wasn't some change that was having to be worked through, right? So it's almost like, yes, technical is important, yes, knowledge is and experience is important, but being able to adapt to a constantly changing environment, that's one of the most crucial skills. And that's not, and you know, some people have it, some people don't. But we use a couple different, so like when we talk about levers in that respect, you know, we have a couple different tools that we work with and use. One in particular is called predictive index. There's hundreds of different solutions out there along those lines, but that's the one we recommend because it helps us create kind of like a behavioral target, a job target. And then when we're hiring people against that target, it kind of helps us self-select the right people, at least the top, you know, 2 to 3 that we can do a final interview with. And so those kind of tools are very, very helpful. But again, once you get them in the door and now they're there, one of the things that we do pretty intentionally is on the job training, cross training. You know, we do reviews that have feedback, like here's some areas that we think you need to improve, but I also want to empower my folks to set their own goals. You know, what are you trying to achieve? What are you trying to do? How can I help you be better? Because if the employee is functional, if the employee is getting along with other people on their team and working towards a goal that they care about, they're going to be a great person on the team. And then again, adaptable so that we can scale.
Thank you, Brad. I love the idea of having a very clear, not just a process for hiring and understanding, okay, here's my kind of template that I use for job descriptions. Maybe here's some of the tasks that this person is going to have to do, but a sense of who they are as a person and exactly are they adaptable, because it's impossible to exist without navigating change in kind of today's environment. The predictive index that you mentioned, I haven't heard of that before. Is this like a methodology, or is it what can you tell us a little bit more about this predictive index?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, predictive index, it's a platform. It's a service, you know, just like Caliper, just like Wonderlic. There's a number of, just like Myers-Briggs, there's a number of different types of behavioral profiling. What predictive index is it kind of takes that, makes it very, very easy to implement, very easy to implement in terms of a hiring process. And so it ultimately gives you that sort of that personality profile, the behavioral profile that you can use to say, hey, you've got people on your team that are different. One likes organization, one likes structure, one likes flexibility, one likes, you know, so how can we work together? So it does have all of those sort of components in it in terms of a capability. But yeah, we love it just because it doesn't cost an arm or a leg. It's easy to implement. You can fold it into your hiring process, but once they've gotten on board, it can then be used to help people on your team work together, because we now know a little bit more about how each other communicates. And that part is not necessarily incredibly unique, you know, because there are Myers-Briggs, there are DISC assessments, all those things, which basically attempt to do the same thing. So, but it's a good platform.
I really love that, and I just wanted to pull up this section here that we have for this first level, which is I think common misconception that I think people have a lot of the times, which is this notion that well, hiring is hard and that's why we're not growing. And I think part of the discussion that we had as we were putting this presentation together was this concept of, well, is it that it's hard to hire kind of across the board, which it is, by the way. It is definitely very, very challenging to hire. I think we've all kind of experienced that personally. But I think there's also an element of have you gotten really, really clear of exactly how you are going to leverage the people who are going to be on your team? Because if you have that clarity, and if your scope of what you're looking for is really clearly defined, things actually in some sense get a little bit easier, because you don't have to spend so much time deliberating on every individual. You kind of have this picture laid out before you. Mike, have you ran into these types of themes at Avalara or in other role? Excuse me, or in other roles?
No, I think that this scenario comes up all the time. And to your point, you were kind of touching on a little bit. I think everybody, you know, Brad mentioned it as well. But it's all about kind of almost knowing your role and knowing who to put into that position to be successful, right? And adaptability is always key. Like I know my role at Avalara, and but if I know I'm not strong, have a strong suit in a certain specific area, I need to know who I need to go to in order for that. So it's all about understanding who you can rely on in that sense and who you can actually put into those roles and understand each other's lanes, right? And this goes beyond just Avalara. Like when I work with Brad with VARC, you know, I have to understand VARC's needs, what they need from me, as well as what our mutual prospect or customer would need as well. So it's mutual across the board, understanding everyone's role and really just always setting proper expectations. So I would say it's a very fluid discussion to have that, but yeah, absolutely.
I love it. And also, you bring up a really good point, which is that the team, the people that you're hiring, they are perhaps your internal team, but it's also everybody who supports you around the business to actually implement, whether that's operational things inside your business or if it's pure delivery of products and services to your end customer and client. Brad, anything else to add here, or should we keep going to the next
Yeah, no,
level?
I just thought of another thing that I think is just kind of interesting. Avalara, relatively speaking, big organization, lots and lots of employees. We're a small company, 17, 18 employees, relatively a lot smaller, right? But we have similar challenges. It's how do I get the most out of my people? How do I do the best job that I can in the world for my customers? And having your people know each other and what they do best is part of the story. And even though we're again a small business, just like a lot of the folks maybe on this webinar, we still have people that are like, oh, I don't know what Bob and that department does. I don't know what Sally in that department does. And so yeah, they know each other, they see each other, but a lot of times we do kind of work in silos. Right. So going out of your way to make sure that everybody on your team knows what other people on the team do and what they're capable of can be helpful, right? Because I run into a problem and I know that there's somebody on my team that can help. Great example of that is just this last year, we went to one of the QuickBooks conferences, Scaling New Heights. And on that conference, we brought several folks from our team. And we were going to do this little excursion to Universal Studios, right? Well, again, one of the people on our team that was going to do that, they did tons and tons of research. They literally created a spreadsheet of all the rides, which ones were big, which ones were small, which ones were had the shortest lines, longest lines. I mean, that would drive me insane. I couldn't possibly do that. But just using that as an example, she loves that stuff. She loves organization, planning, details, drilling down into that stuff. Well, how can I then, as a company, best utilize that skill, that capability, that passion? Well, if there's something that needs to be organized, detailed, she's the lady that's going to go do that. Whereas if I have somebody else on my team that's a little bit more like me, that it's like, I can work in some level of detail, but not that level. I don't want to ever be there. You give that same task to that person and it's going to be an utter failure, right? So same thing when you're looking to scale a business, there's certain things that need to be focused on, worked on, developed, improved, standardized, all that stuff. Do you have the person in the right seat that has that desire and capability and passion and expertise? And if you do, then I think it's green lights going forward. But if you got the wrong person, it can also go the other direction. So,
yeah. And I feel like the fact that you cross-train people at VARC, it probably helps uncover some of those strengths and help people understand exactly where they fit, even if the role that they are coming in to initially is one type of role. Over time, people do end up evolving. And I think that happens across whether you're a small organization or a large organization.
Yeah.
We will keep moving here because we want to tackle some of the questions as well. So the second one, without further ado, second lever is your customers actually, and internally as we're putting this together as well, we had a discussion: is this your customer? Is this your product? How do we kind of encapsulate everything into one? But the way to think about it really is you have the group of people, core group of people, and sometimes in the beginning it might just be you and nobody else, and you might add on team members as time goes on. But you have the folks who are delivering something, whether that's a product, a service, a combination of those two items. And then you have the actual market that you're delivering this to. And the market is maybe not a lever that you can control to the same degree that you can control your team. Obviously, you can't just go out and completely change the market. But it's about understanding which part of that market you are targeting and how the team that you have maps on to what you can deliver for that market. And we have quite a few talking points here to go through, but I think the common misconception that a lot of people have out of the gate when it comes to their customers and when it comes to growth specifically, which is what this discussion is about, is that, hey, we just need more leads. If we have more leads, then we're going to have more sales, and then we're going to grow. And that's kind of like the simple way to look at it, and I've seen this, I think, at every single organization that I've been a part of. This is always the top line story, and I don't know if that story is always true. Brad, I think you have some perspective here and some opinions to share from what you've seen at your own business.
Yeah, for sure. I think again, we work with a lot of small businesses that are in multiple stages throughout the course of an engagement. They might be like super small and they're trying to grow. And then we've got folks that are even outgrowing QuickBooks. They're growing so fast, growing so quickly. And so when you're working with clients in that sort of range, at the very beginning, it's very, very tempting to just say, I will do it no matter what they ask for, right? Like I can do that. And when you're scrapping for every single client, you kind of sort of need to do that, right? It's like, I'll take it. And that's one way to learn, what you are really, really good at. But I think as you mature, and more importantly to the goal of this webinar, when you're trying to scale, it becomes more and more important to focus and focus and focus. The phrase is, the riches are in the niches, right? So the more that you focus on what you're best at and stick with that, the better. And that also means that you have to say no to clients every once in a while. Like, no, this is not something that we do, because if we tried to do this for you, it's going to end badly for all of us. And so, yeah, we've in the course of our 25, 26 year history, we've had that same challenge. We took everything and then we started saying we do this, and it got a little bit tighter and tighter. But I mean, just to give you kind of an example, one of our specialties is migrating people from QuickBooks Desktop to QuickBooks Online. We know them both. We're experts at both, but we have a lot of clients, especially today, that want to move to the cloud. They want to, fully implement solutions like Method and Avalara. And so they're trying to get to the cloud. Well, there's those migrations can be easy, but they also more frequently are very, very hard. And we've taken on a couple clients where they were like, I'm desperate. I have got to get to desktop to online. And as we started working with them, we found out, well, they didn't just want one file. They wanted multiple files merged into one QBO. And then they also wanted like 10 years worth of history. And that's challenging. Those are situations where we know in advance, this is going to be a mess. This is going to be a nightmare. Nobody's going to be happy at the end of 3 months. It's going to cost more than they want to pay. It's going to take longer than they want it to take. Those are scenarios where we have to really get better at just saying, no, we're not going to be able to do that for you. And it's not that we don't want to. It's not that we don't have the capabilities, but we just know that if we do this for you based on what your request is, you're not going to be happy. At some point, you're going to say this is taking too long and it's costing too much money. We're telling you now that is going to happen. So let's not do that, and let's do something else instead. We've had those scenarios, and we've had to learn that the hard way sometimes. We've had to do it and then find out we should have said no. And so that's a personal example that, that's something that we've had to own. But I think it's also true to be able to say, look, we're not experts in this area. We have referral partners that we can point you to and direct you to and let them take care of you, because quite frankly, they're going to do it better than us, faster than us, cheaper than us. And it's going to do better for them. But again, you got that dynamic of just wanting to do everything for every client. And sometimes you just have to say no based on experience that this is not the right fit.
Absolutely. And I think as definitely as you scale, it's almost part of what it means to scale. Like if you want to do it efficiently, you have to understand what you're going to say no to. I think for our audience, Mike, with the customers that you work with, especially companies that are looking at growth and looking at increasing their sales, what are the types of, let's say, like tax implications that they have to think through when it comes to the ramping sales volume and maybe ramping how to even approach this strategy?
Yeah, I mean, sales tax, when it comes to adding headcount or increased sales, when you're adding to customers, is what kind of experience you're providing to those customers. But starting with really just kind of your headcount, like what people are you going to put in place? Are they going to stay in the same state? Are they going to be a multi-state? Because if you put a W-2 employee in a different state than yours, there's a new tax obligation, right? So from that physical standpoint, the other part is when you're growing your business and you're selling, what are the tax implications prior to meeting a particular state's threshold to have that obligation, right? So what kind of experience are you going to provide your customers when that obligation is met and you have to start doing it? And that's really, it's all about staying in your lane and kind of understanding what your strengths are. I mean, Brad mentioned it, right? If we're not good at something, it makes no sense to set false expectations. I'd rather give, and anyone would agree, if you set the proper expectations, saying, "Hey, we can't do this, but I know who can," then great. And I think that's kind of how you learn to scale, is understanding where your strengths are at, growing with that, and understanding more as you kind of expand your branches more.
Absolutely. And I just want to be conscious of time, so we will keep moving to the third lever here. Before that, just wanted to touch on this. It's a bit of a plug on a book that's quite old, I would say, depending, I guess, on your standards of business books. But I think this was released in early 2000s, and it's called Managing a Professional Services Firm. But it really applies to anybody who delivers something to an end user and relies on people to come out with that final product or service. And it really breaks things down very cleanly into thinking through what kind of a business you're running. Like, are you running a procedural firm where you're solving a lot of common problems? Are you running what Meister here calls gray hair firms, which is you're solving problems that are not common for the client, but maybe common for the industry or market segment that you're targeting. So they're not purely procedural, but you have to have this like specialized knowledge where you can apply it across multiple people in this deep niche. And then also the third option, which is what Meister calls brains, which is like really, really unique custom problems that businesses are solving. And if you can think through how your business fits into this framework, it's obviously not perfect, but it's a way to guide yourself. It can actually help you think through what kind of client am I going for, going back to our second lever, and then what kind of a team do I need to have in place in order to service that client. And it all kind of falls from then. It gives you some guidance. So if you have some free reading time, maybe this weekend or next, I highly encourage either looking at just the summary, maybe through ChatGPT of the book, or if you're old school, popping over to the library and grabbing one of these. Any final thoughts before I head over to the last section? Cool. Okay, so the last one Last lever is really about your systems. And this was another thing that came out during our discussions. I think, Brad, you were pretty adamant about thinking things through in this way. And it's that these are all connected, right? You really have to think about your team, your customers, and your system as this integrated whole. And if one of those things isn't operating that well, it might collapse the entire frame. Brad, when it comes to systems, I mean, this is kind of the bread and butter of what VARC does
Yeah.
with QuickBooks. What are your thoughts on this framing?
Yeah, no, it's a couple points that kind of come to mind. One is, you could have the best people in the world, but if your systems are terrible, if your systems are bad, if they're ancient, so to speak, and not really working well today, having the best people in the world is not going to help, right? So it does take a good team. It does take working with the right clients on the right types of projects, and then it does take having really, really good systems. Again, we're talking about scaling, and so one of the lessons that I learned from a few folks along the way is you don't try to scale a business when you've got inefficient systems, because that inefficiency scales with you. Okay. In other words, the problems scale with you. They get bigger and bigger. They don't get smaller. You don't overcome inefficiencies with volume. They just get worse. Right. And so you have to really focus on making your operation as efficient as possible before you scale, before you try to grow, before you go try to acquire 3 new businesses, so that you can get bigger and bigger and bigger. You need to make sure that your own internal operations are super, super efficient. So one of the things that we look at, and one of the things that we recommend is using technology solutions to overcome either the limitations in your software that are requiring you to do things manually, okay, or leveraging technology and solutions that make those things that you do over and over and over again super efficient, like as efficient as possible. That's time tracking solutions, that's CRM systems, that's automation. Like if you've got multiple systems that are trying to talk back and forth. One of the questions that was on the list from the attendees was, how do I eliminate manual data entry? How do I eliminate the need to enter it one place and then re-enter it in another place and another place and another place? Because all of that manual data entry slows you down and it frustrates your people. I mean, how many times have I heard, not only internally, but like a client say, I'm so tired of having to do this the hard way. Isn't there a better way? Isn't there a faster way? Well, usually there is. Okay. So anyway, I won't belabor the point other than to say, yes, you need to look at those things that you're doing over and over and over again the hard way, things you're doing by hand, things you're doing on paper, things you're doing in Excel spreadsheets, which is not a system, it's a tool, that are very, very inefficient, and look for those solutions that can dramatically improve the efficiency. We're one company out of thousands around the country that maybe specialize in that or help clients with that. So it's not just us, but find a company that really specializes in a certain area and get their help, pay for that expertise, pay for that advice, because it's going to save a lot of time in the discovery phase, but it's also going to save time in the implementation. And once you've got that new system up and running, it's going to save tons and tons of time. So yeah, that's kind of how we look at that.
I love that. And we are going to jump to a couple of examples, and then we are going to then dive into the questions that folks have. So I think as we go through the examples, as we have discussed the kind of 3 core levers, and maybe some of the questions are starting to percolate, please drop those in the Q&A box in Zoom. And then we will tackle those, and then we will also tackle the questions that came in during registration. So before jumping into that, a few examples of actually systems being implemented. So we'll start off. This is, by the way, a common misconception. People will have objections a lot of the times, and sometimes they're right. But so many times I've seen this be completely wrong or completely off. There's almost, I think we also talked about this, Brad, this like emotional aspect to it. Well, we can't automate this thing because that there's going to be friction in the business. People are going to be unhappy. I think that is always the case when it comes to change. But if we want to make sure that we're putting an effort into actually moving the lever of systems, we have to make this commitment to automation. So what I want to quickly touch on here is this example. This is a recent story that we did around a company called Mobility City that worked with Method over a year to streamline their entire process. So they're a mobility equipment sales, rentals and repairs business. They've been around for a long time, but really they started this franchise back in 2018, and they grew to 50 locations, 50 franchise locations, and they had anywhere from 300 to 600 items per location. And you can think about, this happening without a system. They had somewhat of a system in place, but they really didn't have anything that was clear, standardized, and benchmarked for everybody. You really start hitting a wall where you don't have visibility into what's happening on a case-by-case basis, and you cannot leverage the scale that you have when talking to potential distributors or talking to other potential suppliers. So what they did with Method is they approached us to create a universal system that applied to every single location, that had clear work orders and standard operating procedures, and it had a database that was fully standard for everybody, and had the historical information on the items related to all of the services and clients that they had in their purview. And so I'm not going to go into like a full overview here, but I just wanted to share with folks that when Mobility City came to Method, they were already using Method, but they hadn't built the platform out to match exactly the vision that they had. So they were on the platform, rudimentary usage, but they really needed to expand it quite substantially. And so what they did was they went through this process of standardized work orders. And I just wanted to pull out a couple of examples here where when their reps go out into the field and they service a customer, they go through a standardized checklist, and they know what the checklist means and what every stage has to look like, because there's also documented standardized flow for the franchises that they can onboard themselves onto, and documentation that they can consume as new hires come on board. And again, they have this standardized item catalog across the board, meaning that now they can create reporting. Now they can look at benchmarks of which location is doing what, and actually make really impactful strategic decisions. And going back to this idea that, you can't automate something or you can't standardize something because of reason X. As I was talking to Mobility City, even they mentioned how, as this was being rolled out, there was definitely friction in some cases. Like folks some folks were really, really excited for it, but some folks wanted to stick to their own unique process. And so you have to work with the dynamics that you have in order to achieve the benefits of pulling this lever. So that's just one quick example. And then Mike, I wanted to throw it to you for an example of a system when it comes to sales tax. And I think you're going to share your screen with us.
Yes. All right, let me know if you can see. Should look like a transaction of some sort.
Yes.
Perfect. So I'm going to briefly cover just the left side over here. So the idea for Avalara is like we try to automate as much as we can, but we also streamline the sales and use tax process. So when it comes to state registrations, you go to 50 different states, they have 50 different ways you have to register, right? We help streamline that process. Not much of an automation, but it's a streamline. Calculations, very self-explanatory, based on where you're selling, to whom you're selling to, and what you're selling. We have the ability to provide a rooftop level accuracy calculation to understand that logic, sourcing rules, jurisdictions, et cetera. Additionally, we look at accounts payable, right? What are you buying? What are you not charging sales tax at the end of the day because you're consuming it during the process of which completing a job. So kind of the accounts payable aspect is very useful when it comes to that scenario. And then for your customers, who are you selling to that maybe has a special exemption? Are they tax exempt? Right? We want to understand that so that we can automate that process for you and keep those documents up to date. And then what happens when all of the sales tax is collected, right? This is where the automation is great because it's going to be automatically remitted to a state. So it's going to, or special jurisdiction, if you're in a home rule like Colorado, we are going to be able to automate that process for you based on the results from the calculation itself. And then going really back to scalability, right? Plethora of integrations. QuickBooks Desktop, right? How do they work together? Are you selling online? Like, what does that look like? We want to be able to provide a sales tax solution that is a single source of truth. So you're not having to scale to all these different systems looking for one or the other. Where all reporting will fall back onto a single source, which hopefully would be Avalara for that. But at the idea, this is kind of what a calculation would look like from Avalara, right? We look at the ship to address, and we convert to longitude latitude. You cannot get more granular than that. And then we're going to look at several products, right? This is where we hold on to VARC to help with tax code mapping. Avalara developed a pool of tax codes that are specific to what you sell. So it understands the logic of the products. And then based on the state, county, any special tax, we deliver a result of that tax calculation. Say it's an exempt based on another line item. So it's freight. It may not be taxable in California, so therefore there's no tax applied. So that's where we can automate a lot of that process, but in some instances where we can't automate, we do have a streamlined ability for that sales tax. It's staying in our lane and understanding what we're good at and then focusing on that. So, but yep, that, will conclude my demo, but hopefully people understand that that's where from a sales tax solution, that's what we are able to deliver.
And I would imagine that as a company grows and as you're trying to manage all of this without a system, this becomes a massive headache, especially if you have a lot of inventory that you're moving. Brad, I'm sure you've seen scenarios that are very painful until you actually get something in place.
Oh yeah, absolutely. In fact, we're big fans of both Method and Avalara because of the unique things that you guys bring to the table. But like specifically with Avalara, we use Avalara. I mean, we're not just a referral partner for Avalara. We actually use it ourselves because it helps us be so much more efficient. My month-end, sales tax closing process takes 30 minutes. And that's for like 5+ states. Whereas if I was trying to do that manually, I mean, that could be 20 hours. I mean, it could be a lot of time manually manipulating, reports in QuickBooks and exporting to Excel and trying to manipulate the data and summarize it and get all these things figured out just so I can log into a state's website and like fill out their unique form. Oh, no, because every state's different. I actually love the Avalara sales tax calculation that Mike showed, because we, on occasion we'll have a customer say, "Oh, that shouldn't be taxable," and we'll be like, "Well, it actually should," and then we'll go pull up the calculation, and this is exactly why it is taxable. And so, I understand that you don't want it to be taxable, but the state is telling us, unfortunately, we have to charge the tax on that thing. But being able to pull up a calculator to map out and show why is the system part of why it makes it so more efficient instead of me having to guess a lot. Yep.
Thank you, Brad. So we are going to move to the question section. We have quite a few questions to cover, but we're going to start with this one. And this is from the pre-submitted questions that folks sent in during registration. Something that we didn't really call out during the registration process, but we will in the future. And it's that the best selected question is going to get a gift card from us. And this was submitted from Michelle. We really love this question because it was so comprehensive and it touched on so many different things. So I will just read it out to you. and then we can have a bit of a discussion of how we would tackle this, and then we move on to the rest of the questions. So now is a great time to start submitting things in the Q&A if you have stuff on the top of your mind. So Michelle's question was, when it comes to actually streamlining things and trying to scale the business, her concerns were around convincing older members of management that we've outgrown the spreadsheet-based production management system that has been in place, and we need to implement a real system. So that's number one. Number two, keeping younger team members engaged in the work while they manage an outdated and inefficient system. And then number three, scheduling production when much of the work is custom and involves different tasks for every job. So that is a really big three-part challenge. I think we would do a whole webinar just on these things, on each one of them. When I think about the first piece, one thing that comes to mind, I was recently on a customer call where the person I was speaking to told me that they had been dealing with these disconnected systems, different spreadsheets, different project management systems, kind of scheduling systems, all cobbled together, and they were attempting to centralize something for years, for many, many years, and nothing really was properly working. And explicitly, of course, this is in a biased way, it's a bit of a method plug. But when this person found method and presented what method had and how it worked, the management team could connect that platform back to what they were already doing. And what they were relying on in a lot of cases was Excel. And so they were saying, look, we have Excel, we have all this additional information. Sure, you manage that, but like this is the stuff that we want to see. But because they understood what Excel looked like and how it worked, and because what was presented to them could be matched to their current process, the sell in the conversation was a little bit easier. And you could say, look, this thing we have covered already, but what you're not seeing is the pain that the rest of the team is feeling as a result of this outdated system. So I think at least what I learned from that conversation was that you have to some extent meet people where they are, and help them understand that the change you're asking for isn't this kind of drastic, burn everything to the ground, start from scratch type of approach. Brad, any thoughts on this first one, or even the second and the third piece here?
Yeah, no. In fact, I want to tie together some of the concepts we've talked about throughout the webinar. So the first thing is having people on your team, whether they're new or experienced, that are adaptable, right? If you've got old people, experienced, senior, whatever you want to call it, people on your team, and they're very stuck in their ways and not willing to adapt as things change, that is a problem, right? That in and of itself needs to be looked at and worked on and improved. And like, how can I help you be more adaptable? Okay, with the folks that you already have, super, super important. But you also have to recognize that we are in every business, we're a people-based business. We're people helping people. Okay, and so there's personalities involved. There's likes and dislikes involved. If you've got somebody that's very experienced on your team, it's possible that they've seen new things come and go, right? They've tried things that failed, and so they have some wounds, if you will, some calluses when it comes to adopting new features or new software. And so you have to recognize that. I'd say in that particular scenario, you need to be mindful of the fact that these people need to be convinced that there is a better way. Sometimes they need to see it. Sometimes they need to touch it. Sometimes they need to experience it before they will believe. Others will, read a testimonial and say, okay, well, if they said it's good, let's go ahead and do it. Okay. So, but know that you've got different people on your team, that some need to be logically convinced, some that need to be emotionally convinced. And those are very different things, right? So they need to be convinced that this is going to be a better thing, but also let's just be real. Sometimes when we're talking about implementing new software that's going to make our jobs more efficient, how is that being received sort of by the people that are left after this system is up in place. Are they still going to have a job? Are they going to be moved to a different role because, a lot of the time that they spent doing a specific thing is no longer needed? Those are real things that go through people's heads that has to be addressed. Because if they fear losing a job, or if they fear changing their role because this new thing is going to make this process more efficient, those things need to be talked through. You need to have conversations about that so that they're not roadblocking the adoption of a very helpful new system.
Appreciate that, Brad. Yeah. Mike, any thoughts on this? I think for production, maybe the tax piece isn't quite there. It would be more so for the delivery side. But I'm wondering if you've seen resistance with implementation of Avalara in the past, and how you guys have overcome that.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to it, I mean, I'll be the first one to say that there's a lot that goes into understanding the taxability of goods. There's a lot that goes into the product and how we get a customer live from Avalara's perspective, which is why we do lean on VARC for a lot of those implementations for our QuickBooks users, because it's very level set. It's very easy to get lost in the weeds. So I see it all the time, but I will say that that's where you got to utilize the tools that you have. And I look at it from, if I look at like a seasoned member that maybe is not pulling into a newer tool very well, it's like, okay, expressing how they currently are doing it and how that newer tool can help them get to a better result, maybe faster, right? And then for the newer reps, or newer members, how to keep them engaged. It's, hey, that as much as this is going to automate, it's still not 100% turnkey. There's still an element that needs to be followed. There's still a business order processes that need to be understood. So it's absolutely, but I mean, that's why you lean on partnerships, you lean on your team, whether it's internal or external partners, to be able to deliver the result that ultimately is what businesses are looking to achieve.
I think that's really good insight. And I think when it comes to at least that second part as well, like keeping folks engaged, and that's whether we're talking about people who are seasoned and have been in the business for a long time, or people who are just joining. I think finding the right level of ownership can make a really big impact. Like because people ultimately, if they can feel empowered, like they can be part of the change. I think that can come a long way to energizing the team and helping problem solve. So appreciate both of your insight on this one. And I want to turn now to some of the questions that we got from this registration. And as we go through this, once things come up, feel free to add them to the Q&A box. Let me just check where we are with the Q&A. Okay, still waiting for submissions there. So we will open up the webinar submission questions. One interesting and very pertinent one to our conversation today was around lack of efficient data transfers between project management software and QuickBooks Desktop Enterprise Pro. Complicated and requiring cleanup time. So that's all the context that I have. But if we think about this, Brad, I feel like this is kind of straight out of your playbook. I'm sure you've gone through these types of cases. What's been your experience with integrating different pieces between QBD?
Yeah, no, great question. And it could be project management, it could be inventory management, it could be a lot of different things, CRMs as well. If it's hard to fix what's broken. Like if you've got a system that's not really talking very well with QuickBooks, it's almost impossible to overcome that because it is what it is, right? We have clients that use ServiceTitan, and ServiceTitan does a lot of field management. It does a lot of obviously very, very intricate management of projects and things. It doesn't integrate with QuickBooks very well. So we've got clients that are still trying to use it, and you end up having to come up with workarounds to get the data from one system to another. You're doing a lot of exporting and importing. Well, that's fine, but why not maybe you choose a different solution that does the project management, but also integrates well with QuickBooks, right? So that's the kind of thing that we look at. It's like, let's not try to make something work that's not gonna work. Let's find a better solution that can still check all the boxes, but integrate with QuickBooks better. Okay. When it comes to CRM systems, people all hopefully on this webinar know QuickBooks is not a CRM system. It's a great accounting solution, but not a CRM system. And so when people call us and say, well, what do you recommend for CRM systems that can also help us with a little bit of marketing and sales pipeline? It's like, well, you're using QuickBooks, you ought to be using Method, because that's what you guys do incredibly well. And the integration is seamless. You're not having to come up with workarounds, right? So find the right solution that integrates well, and you're going to be a lot happier.
Appreciate that, Brad. And we did actually have quite a few questions come in. I'm not going to go through every single one of them around people saying, look, I have inefficiency in reporting and billing, all currently manual processes. Somebody literally wrote, having a CRM that works the way I really want it to. And then we had questions around how Avalara works, general questions about the software. I would highly encourage people, if you are in this state where you're saying, I really got to figure out tax. Like, tax is becoming a problem. I can't deal with it solo anymore, or the way that I've been doing it. Or if you're thinking, look, my kind of workflows, order delivery, sales, invoice, and so on and so forth is broken, and I need to do something about it, and I'm working within the QuickBooks ecosystem, I would say reach out for a consultation. So we have team members in the chat, and they should post a link for how to get in touch with Avalara, how to get in touch with Method and get a consultation with the team, how to get in touch with VARC. If you have these intricate kind of QuickBooks questions and you want to have a system that's better connected, you'll get a much clearer picture. And I know that we're almost at time. We'll go over just for a couple more minutes on some of the big questions that we have here. One person asked, I thought it was also very pertinent, especially to the second lever that we talked about. Question was finding larger, higher quality projects, clients to stabilize income and give us the confidence to build a team. Brad, as somebody who's been in business for a long time, who's probably dealt with this type of scenario, what would your advice be for this person who's just trying to figure out, I want to do high quality projects, I want to have a stable cash flow, and I want to actually build a team? We obviously don't know anything about their business, but in general terms, what's been kind of the elements of success for you?
So in terms of trying to find an appropriate solution, was that
in terms of even how they are approaching business, in terms of like finding larger clients with that have higher quality projects?
For
irrespective
sure.
of the solution, yeah.
For sure. No, the no-brainer answer on that question from experience is developing a very, very strong referral partner network. Okay. We can't be everything to everybody and do it well. And neither can you, right? And neither can they. So no matter what the business, no matter what the industry, we can't be all things to all people. Okay. So what that means is if we operate in a certain part of the market, maybe we're focused on small, medium-sized companies, taking on a client that's more mid-market or enterprise is going to be a bad thing. We don't have the expertise in enterprise clients, right? So we want to partner with companies that do specialize in that size. Because quite frankly, when we get somebody that says, hey, can you do this? And they're an enterprise, we would say, no, but we've got a great company that absolutely can take care of you, because they do that all day, every day. And because it's a referral relationship, they will hopefully do the same for you. A small company contacts them and says, can you help me with my small company? They're probably they should say, no, we only work with enterprises, but we recommend this company because they specialize in small, right? So you can find that in terms of market size all over the place. You can see that in terms of industry specialization all over the place. We could be small business focused, but we only work in construction, or we're small business, but we only work in nonprofits. Well, creating referral relationships with people in different industries, even if they're in the same target size, is how you do that. We can't know everything about everything. And so let's find somebody that knows something about this so that we can refer back and forth. It is by far the best way of getting the right clients that are perfect fits for you and being able to find a perfect fit when it's not you.
I love that insight. Thank you so much, Brad. And I know that we are over time. Brad and Mike, if you're okay staying for a couple more minutes,
Sure.
if folks, really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
We have some good questions still coming in. If folks need to jump, we really appreciate your time. Appreciate you joining us. Hope you have a lovely rest of the day. And we'll be in touch with the recording afterwards as well. But just a couple of other questions that came up. Brad, this is a great one. It's around what are the typically advised project management or scheduling and time tracking software packages to integrate with QuickBooks Desktop?
Yeah, great question. So we actually recommend and work with a couple different ones. QuickBooks Time, formerly T-Sheets, is the best time tracking solution that has direct integration with QuickBooks. It syncs employees, it syncs with customers, it syncs with the jobs for a specific customer. If somebody's already using QuickBooks and they're trying to do time tracking, it's a no-brainer. Use QuickBooks Time. If you're maybe in another system, maybe you're not using QuickBooks, or maybe you've got a very, very industry specific type of time tracking that you may need. QuickBooks Time might not be the best solution. Maybe there's timekeeping.com. Maybe there's ClockShark. Maybe there's Timekeep. I mean, there's several different ones out there. And sometimes it just comes down to like, what are the specific features that it can do that you need it to do? QuickBooks Time is pretty good for most scenarios. But law firms usually need they need a little bit different type of implementation than maybe just a generic sort of QuickBooks Time. So I think at the end of the day, it's all about asking the right questions to find out what are the real needs so that we can say this versus that. And then yes, having a seamless integration with QuickBooks is the best case scenario. But if you can't get that, it doesn't mean you're dead in the water. It could be that there's other ways of getting that data imported. We work with lots of different tools when people are trying to move data, from one system to another. And sometimes it's just a matter of knowing what those tools are so that you can keep using that other system. But instead of manually doing stuff, maybe there's a tool that can help bring it in.
Appreciate that answer. And we just have lots, but just one more to tackle that was a little bit different from what was submitted during the registration process. Mark wanted to know more about the sales process from beginning to end. His problem is that we have way too much double, and actually said and even triple data entry. So, I mean, I would say if you're working with QuickBooks, again, whether that's online or desktop solutions, if you're thinking about everything from customer communications all the way down to estimates, invoices, actually collecting payments, having all that reconciled back to QuickBooks so you don't have to do double entry, Method is going to be the one place that's going to solve all of that for you. If you have specific intricate setups that you need, it can also be customized in any kind of way that you really envision. And then obviously, if you're going through the sales process there, you're going to have to deal with the sales tax. And I would say Avalara is going to be the piece that you want to tack on there at the end.
Mattis, I was just going to add one point to what you just said, which is having a CRM to help manage that entire process and the pipeline is crucial. But just to reinforce what you just said there about customization, the fact that Method can be customized, super, super helpful. But not just that, it's also the automations that can be built into it, right? If I'm doing these 100 times a day, I don't have to type everything in. I can build in automations within that platform to do a lot of the work for me. I do this, it triggers this. I do this, it triggers that. And so that's where not only customization, but also the automation part comes in. And again, you guys are great at that.
Thanks so much, Brad. I think we're going to start wrapping here. Mike, any last thoughts, last words, and anything that we touched here in terms of automation or where kind of Avalara really shines in the discussion?
Yeah, so we really shine when it comes to the businesses need to scale, right? Whether it's a pre-revenue or all the way up to your Fortune 500s, we offer that scalability, right? So it's to the same point. We partner very well with Meth. We partner very well with VARC in understanding where the business is currently at and where the business needs to go. And it's good to always have a nice safety net in place when it comes to tax liability, because if you're starting out with one state and you jump to 6, you're going to be up a creek. But that's where we offer that scalability, where it'll be able for businesses to grow effectively without having a headache down the road.
Thanks, Mike. Brad, any last thoughts?
No, that's good.
Amazing. Thank you both so much for joining the webinar, for staying extra several minutes. Everybody who joined and stayed with us until the end, thank you again so much. If we didn't get to your question, we are going to be sending a follow-up with the folks who submitted questions. So watch out for that and watch out for future webinars. We're going to be hosting a lot more of these. Once again, thank you, Mike. Thank you, Brad. Hope that everybody has a lovely rest of your day and week. Take care, everybody.
Absolutely. Have a good one.
Hi, everyone. Bye.